Hello, and welcome to the Musica Sacra Project interview series for 2025. If you like this content, would you please like, share, subscribe on YouTube, and follow on social media to indicate that you would like more of these interviews. Secondly, the Musica Sacra Project is entirely run on donations. It is because of people's considerate donations that these interviews and the website are made possible into this year. If you would like to see the project expand and new things to be done, would you please consider donating? You can go to themusicasacraproject.com and find the donation page, and there you can donate, or please email for free international transfer options. But for now, would you please sit back, relax, and enjoy this interview. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interview here at the Musica Sacra Project. Today, I am incredibly honored to have His Excellency, Bishop Schneider, with me to talk about sacred music. For those who do not know, Bishop Schneider is the Auxiliary Bishop of the Archdiocese of Maria Santissima in Astana, Kazakhstan. And he is also just very well loved and appreciated for his propagation and support for the traditions of the Catholic Church. So thank you very much, Your Excellency, for being on here today.
You are welcome.
Thank you. So for those who may not know, you have a very interesting past. Your early life I've read about is most interesting. But I would like to know what your experience has been throughout the years of sacred music in the various places. And now as a bishop, I understand you travel a lot and you go many places. What do you see, and what do you see maybe that's positive and what is negative?
Well, first, I thank God that He gave me the grace to have lived in my childhood and until the 13th year of my life in the underground church in the Soviet Union during the persecution of the church. And I remember in my childhood, I belonged to these Germans, so-called Germans from Russia. We had, even in the clandestine time, my parents participated in a choir with sacred song in Latin. So we had there an older man who was a musician, a church musician, Catholic, and so he gathered during the persecution in evenings in some houses people, and they were singing, instructing them and to sing sacred music, Gregorian Chant, beautiful polyphonic in Latin. And so I remember as a child these songs which my mother and my father were singing. And then we had on Christmas in our house in Kyrgyzstan a worship without a priest, unfortunately, only faithful. My parents conducted it, and they were singing beautiful church music, old German, polyphonic and Latin, Adeste Fidelis and other on Christmas. So these are my memories of church music, even in the persecution time of the church. And then, when we came to Germany, it was a shock for us because we had to state a very superficial form of music during worship, during Holy Masses, sometimes a kind of entertainment melodies, even with guitars or so on. This was for us a deep shock because we grew up in this high sense of sublimity, sacrality during the persecution. It was for us all what was linked with liturgy, mass, sacred, elevated. It was so profound, and therefore we could never understand how we can use in the church during mass songs with melodies which are rhythmic or close to entertainment melodies or close to charismatic Protestant style, and guitars which were used usually in recreation styles. So we could never understand this. This was a deep suffering from my parents. They were deep believing Catholics. And for myself, I never accepted it. So I had in some way, during the persecution time, I got the immunity against all these superficial forms of liturgy and music, in sacred music. So this was part of my experience, which I would like to share with you. My first
Thank
part
you.
of
Yes, it's incredible that in the underground church, people were managing to still do truly beautiful music. I
yes,
think
yes.
that's profound, and I didn't know that aspect of the story. So it really gives us no excuse to not do it if you were doing it back then in those difficult times.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because we appreciated our faith. We were exposed to persecution, so we were in our priests. They were confessors of faith. They were ready to give all for Christ. So in this spirit, they gave us, the faithful, that we were ready to do the highest possible for the Lord.
Mm.
And therefore, even during persecution, we did gather together and sing beautiful and trained and choir and so on.
Beautiful, inspiring. Thank you. So briefly, because we only have a small amount of time, what do you think sacred music brings to the church? You mentioned it elevates our experience. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the church as a whole? Like, why should we have this music?
Well, the sacred music, the song, it is a prayer to the Lord. It is worship, it is adoration, it's praise to the Lord. And so we have to give him the best what we can, not something cheap, something which is entertainment, which we hear, which you hear all the day, these melodies, today with guitars, with all these rhythmic entertainment. This is cheap. This is low. We
Yes.
have to give the Lord the highest quality possible. He is worthy of it. And this he demanded in the Old Testament, to even to sing to him with these silver trumpets with a high quality, which elevated souls to the Lord. And then they said in the Old Testament, when the pagan people will look how you are worshiping the Lord, then they will say, this is which people are so close to the Lord as the people of God. So when it was already in the Old Testament, how much it should be better and more perfect, this principle in the New Testament. And it was. So therefore, since the beginning, the church did not allow even instruments in the worship because of this sensibility not to mix up something which is worldly, which is used in a marketplace or in theater in the first centuries. So by the pagans, only cautiously the church allowed the organ, the only instrument, but only to support the voice, not to be our own performance of music. But this was the original intention of the church when they allowed the instruments only to sustain, support the voice. And until now, the almost all Oriental churches, the Orthodox, they do not allow any instrument from this old tradition of the church from the first centuries. And therefore, the meaning of music, sacred music, was, I think, one of the classic and best explanations of the magisterium of the church is the motu proprio of Saint Pius X, Tra le sollecitudini, it is an Italian name, from 903, where the Pope, in the name of the entire church, as the magisterium, established the principle, the spirit of true sacred music. It should elevate us really to God. It should instill in us a deep awe, a deep reverence, and it should instill us really the spirit of prayer. So recollection, not dissipation, not superficially, to clap hands and to dance. This is completely, when a style of music is, how do you say, influencing us people in a superficial way, and instilling in us some feeling of recreation, entertainment, which is not bad. Recreation, entertainment is allowed, but not in church. It is recreation. We can do it. So not to mix up. And then, so therefore, this is the first aim, to pray deeply, to be united with the Lord. And prayer is the elevation of the soul to the Lord. And so therefore, every melody, the form of melody, the music, should really help us to be more deep united with the Lord during this prayer. So this is the first finality and goal. Then also, it should be always beautiful, says the Church, an objective beauty. So this is a characteristic. It's not subjective. What is objective beauty? And one of the characteristics is harmony. Harmony, when all the parts are together, united for a common aim. And harmony, it is an essential part of what we call beauty. And beauty is in some way instinctively, instantaneously. It is a mirror of the nature which God created. So it is a common experience for all people, is universal beauty. It's not something personal, subjective. So when we see a beautiful countryside or a sunset and so on, every human being, from every culture, every language, will say, this is beauty.
Yes.
And so should be when someone is hearing a church music, the melodies and all instrument, and so it should have the same effect. That is instantaneously we say, this is beauty, it is harmony. And so many people, even non-Christians, when they are hearing Gregorian chant, they are deeply touched in their soul, even non-Christians. And they are experiments. Once I wrote in an article, they made some in therapy for people who had some depression, some problems in their life, psychological problems or psychiatric problems. So one of the physicians to heal the people from these spiritual or psychological diseases, or to help them, a kind of therapy, they were exposed for a kind of time to a very beautiful Gregorian chant music. And then they could observe that this was calming people, really calming. That an effect, a spiritual effect of calming down people who were very excited and so on. And so it has a spiritual dimension, also the beauty of the Gregorian chant, of beautiful church music, also polyphonic, but very worthy. And even in our day, we should produce music according to the pattern, to the example of Gregorian chants. St. Pius X always said, this is the model. The more church music, song or polyphonic or other, comes closer to Gregorian chant, the more it is fitting, suitable for the divine worship.
Thank you for summarizing that wonderful document of Pius X. Thank you. That's perfect. I also heard you mentioned what is done in the East in their church. Could you please explain again, just briefly, the difference that you see maybe in the East and the West, and how we are conducting our music in the liturgies, if you have that experience?
Yes, so I have the experience with the Russian Orthodox Church, where I'm living. They are in a remarkable presence. So I have friends, and I sometimes already assisted their liturgies. So the Russian tradition, they have this polyphonic method, not a cappella as the Gregorian chant, but usually with 4 voices, like the European classical 4 voices songs, very melodical, really beautiful melodical, and solemn. Really, this is their style, is solemn. It's also have some moment of elevating the souls, and usually it is the choir which is singing, not the people, because it is a kind of artful music, so they had to be trained, the singers, and so not all people can join. Therefore, it's only the choir. The people are listening and participating through the ears. So this is an acoustic participation. It's also participation, people. And this is also, it's not that all the assembly must sing. It is a Protestant style. I mean, there are a choir, a group, which is representing the people. And in the name of them, they are singing and giving God the honor. Of course, some simple answers of the dialogue, Mr. Priest, the Lord is with you and with your spirit. This also can join sometimes the people, or they, for example, the credo, they are reciting sometimes instead of singing polyphonically, that the people can join. So it depends. This is the style of the Russian Orthodox Church. The Greek Church, I have not so much experience, but they have kept the more a kind of a cappella sing style. It's a little bit close to the Arabic style of the first centuries or later. So it is a different, not so melodical, I would say, like as the Gregorian chant, but also helping for prayer. But of course, in both, in the Greek and Russian Orthodox churches, there are no instruments. So the instrument is the human voice. And so this is my experience now with the Orthodox.
Yes, it's wonderful to point out that there are no instruments. We can learn a lot from that, in the sense of training people to sing well. And in the Western Church, the idea of always participating, I liked your highlighting that participation in that passive way, and that we too could have great singers carrying this.
I would stress not passive way. It is active. But through listening, it's also active participation.
Exactly. You correct me. That's right. And it's one of the aspects of trying to rejuvenate beautiful sacred music in the Roman Catholic Church is to have people that do the music well, and that not everyone needs to be involved all the time. Our aim is to glorify the Lord with our beauty that we can create. And so to segue into the next question, where do you think us in the Roman Church could improve as sacred musicians or music directors from your experience? Again, I'm sure you've traveled a lot. Where maybe we are doing well, but where also could you give us constructive criticism to help us do better?
I think my experience is that many priests, pastors, or even bishops, they are evaluating their own people. They mean the people they are unable to sing. So some artful song, they say, "Oh, this is too difficult for our people. Let us take the simplest one, the cheapest one." I think it is an error, and the experience shows the contrary. In my travels, I'm observing that many people they wish to be part of a choir. When they are not invited, they are not motivated. So many people have beautiful voices, they are not used. And they are not to be first-class musicians, but really they can sing. Many people have a beautiful voice, and they only to train a little bit them, and they would do this very happy, even not a professional choir which is paid. I think it's not so the ideal way. In some occasions it could be, but the usual way, I think that there are in good parishes, you could find people who will join a choir or a schola, and to give their contribution for the beauty of the worship for the Lord. It is all for the Lord, not for them to present themselves. They must always be conscious it is my modest contribution for the greater glory of the Lord. And of course, also for some edification for my fellow faithful. And even children choir would be good to do. Children also sing beautiful. My experience was I was visiting Africa, some communities which have the traditional Latin Mass, and I saw even simple African peasants. They were singing by heart the Missa de Angelis in Latin and the third credo. Even I witnessed it several times. Or children from the school, African children. Usually the African people are very musical. They have a good ear, and they are good memories. So they are. God gave them this talent, and so they are singing Latin, and very beautiful. We have to learn even from African people who like the Latin Mass and Latin Gregorian Chant. We Europeans, or the people from the so-called ancient world.
Yeah, I'm Australian, so I'm from the other side of the world here, living in Europe, and even Australians are learning parts of the Mass in Latin now. But some people here in Europe or priests will say, "Oh, we can't do Latin because the older generation, they don't understand it." And I think, well, their own language is from the Latin roots, and I know that Australians are learning Latin across the world. And then I know the Africans are embracing it too. So I think it's a time to explain to people, no, we are capable, and like you say, we mustn't evaluate our faithful in our parishes to be capable to do this. So thank you for highlighting that.
For example, I had an experience in Kazakhstan. I have a good friend, a lady. She is very believing, Orthodox. And when she once heard the Pater Noster in Latin, she was in the Catholic Church, and she started to weep. She was so moved. Even she said, I did not understand nothing, but my heart was very close to God. This was her expression. When I heard this beautiful Latin chant, Pater Noster, and then she was hearing in their own liturgy in Greek the Trisagion, Holy God, Holy Immortal God, in Greek, which she did not understand. She had the same effect. She started to weep and said to me later, these moments were for me. Even I did not understand Latin, I did not understand Greek, but it was for me these moments where my heart was more close to God. This was her experience. And this matters, to elevate the people to be close to God. Of course, she had known this, about which was the song, about our Father in heaven, of course. And she had known the title of the song, the Trisagion. But for her, it was not necessary to understand every word and she had known what is the theme of this. And St. Thomas Aquinas also said that it's not necessary for the true worship and prayer always to understand every word for the faithful, he wrote. But it is sufficient for a simple faithful to know about what is the song, about what is the prayer. And he knows about what, then it's sufficient for him to unite his soul with God in an official solemn liturgy. So this more or less St. Thomas Aquinas said it.
That's a very good point. Well, thank you. And a final question to wrap up this wonderful interview is, the problem with not having good sacred music in all the dioceses across the world, it does start from our clergy, our bishops, and it does really need to come from the top down to inspire people. And what could you tell your fellow clergy members to take this initiative and to run with it and help rejuvenate really beautiful sacred music across the world?
Yes, I think we must start today from below.
Well, it is.
And then will come the top. Maybe provide for us. And so I would simply encourage, please discover the beauty of the worship of the Lord. It is an essential part. And try to start a choir maybe once a month, and then slowly, progressively, and you will make your beautiful experience. So this is, in my opinion, a possibility to do some congresses, conferences for sacred music. Why not even some competitions, some together to sing, to make some holy concerts in this sense also for different international or regional meetings for music or choirs, and so to promote it.
Yes. So you're very right. Starting from the bottom up, I see that is the way that it is happening. But it's wonderful to have bishops like yourself who will support and encourage us and make us feel like we're not alone in this plight. So thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you for your interest and for your efforts which you are doing for this very meritorious and important task to promote sacred music in the life of the church. And even though a young person as you, and even a woman,
Yes.
it's not only a task of clergy, but also of faithful and of young faithful and of young girls. This is inspiring
Thank
also
you.
for me, and I hope that you can also find other young fellow youth, young people from your age all over the world to join your beautiful work. And for this, I will give the blessing.
Thank you.
Dominus vobiscum,
Et cum spiritu tuo.
et benedictio Dei omnipotentis Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti descendat super vos et maneat semper. Amen.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, and God bless you and all your work.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.